Hello there. I'm here with Linda Richards. She's a licensed professional counselor, and she bought my book on Amazon and has been using the techniques regularly with her clients. So I wanted to have a conversation with her about um, how it compares to the other stuff that she's been trained in, how she's using it, the outcomes. But before we start, maybe we can learn a little bit more about you, about your journey to become a therapist, what sorts of modalities you've trained with within that field. And
Well, I was trained in 1997 with EMDR while I was still doing postgraduate work. And um, so I started out in the trauma field right from the get go. And in using that, I kept on realizing more and more about how much we have to work as a system, and that everything operates within these different systems outside of us and very much within us. And so the more that I was interested in that, it kept moving towards these body focused therapies. In fact, the logo for my counseling center is two heads with a heart in the middle, because my goal was to help people match up what was in the head and the heart, because you people come in and say, um, I've worked on something, but and I think it's okay. But once they started talking about it, all these sensations would come flooding up, and they would be surprised and say, I worked on that for years. And apparently it's still there. And so I really started working with the body more and helping people to see the connection between the mind and the body, and how we're so cut off, or many of us are so cut off from the body. We kind of have a bias at times, that we can think our way out of these issues, and we really can't, because we just cut off sections of our systems. And just like any system, if you take out one part of it, it's going to malfunction somewhere.
yeah, in terms of the trauma and body modalities you've trained in, what were those?
So those were first of all, EMDR was the first one. And then I really started to get into somatic therapies and interpersonal neurobiology. And the combination of those really comes together. And then reading your book, it just struck me how similar those techniques were, especially to EMDR, using the bilateral and in the body like that. So it really hit home reading your book, and kind of gelled everything together for me to bring to the clients. And um, and then the other theory that I really evolved my practice around is polyvagal theory, and working on calming the nervous system, um, and getting out of freeze and flight in those various states that we go in and out of all the time.
Can you talk more about when you said it brought things together, it gelled together? What was different, would you say? What was the thing that helped you bring those things together in what you read in the book?
Well, a lot of times when people were coming in to do EMDR, there's almost a stigma around it. Um, because when it first came out, it was so different and people were very cautious, understandably so. Um, and then as it grew, and more people were using it, and there was more research to show that it was working, um, there's a lot of technical things that go with it. And then the therapists that use the EMDR, we use light bars and gadgets, and you have to really instruct the client on what to do and when to do it. And so it can seem very overwhelming to the client. But after reading what you had written about how the body naturally wants to integrate things, um, and then the exercise that you have with the infinity resolution using the um, hands, when I present that to people, they just seem to do it so naturally. because there isn't all this technical stuff around them, and it's really within them, and they can tap into that immediately. And not only that, what's really wonderful is that they have the ability to resource themselves immediately. And that's so important in trauma work. And so many people, when they first get into doing trauma work, they want to jump right into the trauma, right? And it's just a disaster when that happens. And so the ability to resource yourself and then titrate that work, you know, to be able to manage how much you want to bite off at one moment really is so wonderful, to have the client understand that within minutes instead of hours of explaining and practicing. It's so very natural.
Yes, 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 yes. That's great. Because that was the intention to show people the wellspring that they have inside of them and to lead them there first. Because
Yes.
the old trauma with your same old pattern, what's the point, right? There's a
Yeah.
deep pattern desire, the brain just wants to conserve energy, so it just relies on these
Yeah.
patterns, and until you bring new
Yeah.
information into the system, you
Yes.
cannot change those patterns. So new information, and that new information is about expansion and resource first, and then
Yes.
you see how rapidly the trauma can kind of unbind and dissolve.
Yeah.
Yep, yep.
Yes, so much so, so much so. I've literally had many clients, as soon as they start tapping, they will just bust out laughing because it shifts so rapidly with the resourcing, and almost, within 30 seconds, they realize that they have it within them, and it just frees them.
Right.
And so then you just build from there, and we just keep on taking piece by piece and resourcing and titrating. And it's just a wonderful, smooth way to do the trauma work. And people aren't overwhelmed by it. And then when you add in the exercises of the three key points in the body, and resourcing the body that way, I have so many people going, I know who I am now.
Oh,
And it's just wonderful to see the shift when they just change their postures, and using the infinity resolution exercises has really changed the way I practice,
mm,
and changed the actual time that people have to spend in therapy, because it is so rapid. It's really amazing. Um, a lot of times using EMDR, although it's a very powerful and effective way to do things, it all it some people have described it to me like, doing the hands is much more under their control, and sometimes doing EMDR is feels like getting hit by a sledgehammer,
mm,
and then they have that therapy hangover type of thing. And
perfect.
I've even people have this therapy hangover thing, and I said, "Let's do the tapping, let's do the infinity resolution," and it lifts that therapy hangover right out of the body.
Ah,
And so more people stick with that versus doing, coming back for more EMDR. They're like, let's do that other thing.
oh, yeah, that's terrific. That's so exciting to hear because integration is the other big piece. So a lot of
Yeah.
read first before you even tackle the problem. And then the other piece is how do you integrate that? How do you bring that in so it endures and it's something that you can have ownership over? Um,
Yes.
that happens even with like body work. Someone was saying that her osteopathic treatment or acupuncture or anything she got always hit her, like she had to recover after getting it, which
Yeah.
with therapeutic modalities, why did she have to recover? It's because she wasn't
Yeah.
ready to accept all of that help. And when you can
Yeah.
help
Yeah.
yourself, that's when
Yes.
you understand where the help can go. But if you're
Yeah.
brave and defensive and resistant to help, and
Mhm.
you're holding yourself up with for dear life,
Yeah.
it's scary to let go. So you can't let that in, and the integration doesn't happen when the help is forced into you.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. Yes. That's probably the key to what the difference is.
Yeah.
because it gives the person so much agency immediately that they're like, "All right, I'm on board."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's the thing when I first heard and learned about EMDR, I know that, it started with the eye thing. And then
Mm,
because that was too overwhelming for a lot of people, that's when you started using the bar and started using
yeah,
the other pieces of equipment. And the vision and the eyes are very powerful. And I use that in my work for a reason. And when you just kind of shift from the eyes without that deeper full body resource, it's very
mm,
disordering for sure.
yeah, yes, very much so. Yes, that's what I was finding in EMDR.
Yeah. Yeah, that's that hangover. It's too much.
Yes,
Your body doesn't know where to put it. Your body doesn't know what it means. There's all these
y
there's so much newness that doesn't make sense to the body.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Well, that's great. That's great. Um, Anything else you wanna share in terms of, like, how maybe how it's impacted you personally?
Yes, absolutely. Anytime I learn something new, or I try it on myself
Yeah.
because I want experiences and how it affects people in general. I know we all have our different nuances and such, but um, doing it the first time myself, I was just amazed at the rapidity of it and the way it was able to get right to the core of the matter. Um, and there's, you talk about this resistance that we sometimes have, and I noticed that in using those hands I didn't have as much resistance, because I had people all the time saying, let's not do EMDR, or let's not do this today, I just want to talk. And even for myself, if I'm upset about something, I'm like, no, I'm not going to do it, right? Because I want to sit in my anger or upsetness or something. And with doing the hand movement, or even first changing my posture and activating those three keys when I'm upset about something, puts me back in a place where I want to work through it. And it's freed me up to be able to go full bore into the whatever best version I can be of myself, because I don't have that resistance that I used to have, and like most people have.
Yeah. Yeah, and that resistance you were talking about, like, I don't wanna do anything with my body or EMDR today, let's just talk. That is that avoidant pattern
Yeah.
of, let's just stay in the head, let's just stay in the story,
Yeah.
see if we
Yes.
can work out here without actually having to deeply feel the material.
Yeah.
And unless if you have embodied trauma, that is highly threatening. So that's why
Yes.
you need to feel like the messages that come from what you feel in your body. That's why I list all of those 6 videos and how they correlate to the messages that your body receives when you do it. So the 3 keys, instead of having to support yourself or brace yourself, that you can feel how you are supported. And that's a huge difference in how you're
Yes.
feeling your body, particularly if it's a braced or frozen body, that there is a way you can feel how the internal support comes up to meet you.
Yes, and, I've also noticed too that, my body feels stronger. I'm more sure of myself. I used to be
Mhm.
very shy and reserved, and since I've been doing those exercises, I noticed that I'm much more apt to, if there's music playing and the crowd's dancing, I used to sit and just observe, and now I get up and dance and I move, and I feel like my body's been freed. I've had a back fusion. I'm supposed to have my knees replaced, but at this point, I really don't see a need for it
Wow.
because everything seems to be aligned, and the body feels strong. It feels much different. And so I can switch my state just by changing my posture in the ways that you show in your book.
That's wonderful. I'm glad that you mentioned something about your spinal fusion. I have had people ask about it, and I
Mhm.
don't mirror because I'm just like, I don't want them to think that they can fix something when there's the surgical shift to your body. I'm glad to hear that even with the fusion, you're feeling a lot different. So that's great. Well, thanks for your time. That was so interesting to hear your experience with your clients and with yourself. Can people who are interested in maybe working with you, can you tell me more about how they can get in touch with you?
Sure, I have a website. It's www.suaspontellc.com.
And what does that mean?
And I use a lot of people ask me that, and I use Sua Sponte. It has several meanings, but it the Latin meaning of it means of its own accord. And I picked that because our bodies have their own accord to be able to heal.
Thank you so much for your time and for sharing.
Yes, thank you so much too for the book and your wisdom in writing that and the work that you do. It really is amazing and really has transformed the way I see things and present them with the people that I work with. So I really appreciate the work that you've
That's
done.
so great. That's so great. It makes me so happy.